So today we will be talking about the island country of Curaçao, where it is on the global map, its history, geography, and its magical journey to the World Cup.
What's up, Ashmita? How are you? How's life? Where were you yesterday?
No, I don't. Yesterday I was at work.
Was this by any
What's the
chance Flipkart glam event?
what the fuck is that? What's a Flipkart
I
glam event?
Bro, I don't know. Yes, I was just checking Instagram today morning, and all of my feed is filled with these videos of in like mid level influencers fighting over free merch that was promised by
Of
Flipkart. There was this event by Flipkart which was called Flipkart Glam. All the fashion and cosmetic brands were there to promote, of course, promote their brand. And Flipkart invited these influencers. So the
Mhm.
event wasn't organized properly, so there was a fight to get the free um samples and everything. So I was just watching these videos and people were literally fighting, like
Oh no.
snatching and fighting. So I thought,
For free
That should have been
merchandise?
that should have been the event. People
Eh,
fighting. That should have been the pay-per-view, you know.
Because I have worked on the brand side, I
yeah,
need to tell this to anybody who's listening. Free merchandise is literally the worst quality shit you can get. Like it's
yeah.
made out of things that nobody wants to use, that nobody needs in their lives, and it's surplus. It is not. I mean, it's not great. It unless it's a massively funded setup where it's a launch thing and they are doing sampling or something like that, where they literally give you like a taste of their product.
No, I'm sure there were brands launching their products, but along with that, there were free samples, all like the free merchandise and free samples
Merchandise?
also.
Who fights over merchandise, dude? Has
Bro,
anybody ever received a merchandise in their lives that they have found useful? Okay,
I don't know.
legitimately, I've never received that. Like, I have never, ever, ever had. I mean, I worked on the brand side, so I have, seen what merchandise looks like, and none of it looks useful. Why fight over? Wow,
Bro,
that's amazing.
I saw some of their profiles. They were like 8K followers. Like the influencers, they had 8K followers, 6K followers. So not like huge. So they might, feel, I don't know, like something you get for free, people do get excited. Not maybe us, but there are people who get excited for free stuff.
No, I love free stuff.
So
I absolutely will take free stuff all the time. But it still has to be something which is good, right? I don't want free trash in my house. like just because you're giving it away, I don't want it in my house. But I did not know Flipkart held glam events. Who would have associated fucking Flipkart with glamour, dude? That's amazing.
the bottom line is that you are not there for this event and it's just sad. Would have been so
I
nice.
Yeah, man. That is that's another way of enacting a rage room. I would have liked to be in there.
I should actually go to Rage Room. It's been on my list
We
since
should.
2016.
What? Why?
Yeah. So we
It's
all
there. It's
know our
there in
friend.
Delhi.
I know. You know our friend, not our friend, the place I used to work before, and she shares the office with our current uh, boss, I think. So
Ah, okay. Yeah, yeah,
she,
yeah.
yeah, so she had some issues with with her company, the other business that she runs, the hotel business. So she was in complete rage, She was bitching, complaining, abusing. So I just suggested her, you know what? If you really want to vent out the anger and the rage, there is a place, you should go. And And she literally asked me to Google and tell me where exactly that is. So I Googled and I got to know about
Excuse
it
me,
that
wait,
it's
wait,
in
wait, wait.
Gurgaon.
She asked you to Google and tell her. Does she know that she can Google herself? It's not a skill that
That's not
is.
the no, she was she was constantly in rage and she
Mm,
wasn't like properly functioning at that moment. So
sure.
so I suggested, and that's how I
Or
got
she's
to know how
a
fun.
or she's a rich person from the global north and is used to having people do shit for her.
That is also true. That is also
Mm,
true. And
mm.
I was naive, in 2016. So I was like,
Was.
okay, yeah,
Prakhar was
hey,
naive.
yes, was,
Nobody can take advantage of Prakhar now.
of
Prakhar
course,
was naive. He didn't know what's what then in
yeah,
2016.
yeah. I
Sandy,
just
why is your light like behaving like a disco light? Like, why are you going from white to yellow to white to yellow? What's going
I
on?
was in party mood for just a second there. Now I'm back.
So anyway, that's how I got to know about this rage rooms, and I thought that I'll go there at least once,
You
and
want
I
to
haven't.
go? I have a
Yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
yeah,
rage
yeah. When we
after
go there,
that.
we should record it and you know sh post it on Instagram on our page so that people can actually see how much rage Ashmita
Sure.
has, you know.
I'm not sure
Not just
if
the
you'll be able
topics,
to
but
take.
like
Yeah. It's
it-
honestly because of the topics I have all the
yeah,
rage because
fair
so much
enough.
of fucked up things are going in the world. But Sandy, what's yours?
Does either one of you know what I am saying, what I'm talking about when I say the word Curaçao?
No, I don't. Prakhar is
Deja vu?
thinking
I
very
don't know.
hard.
Just a random deja vu?
No.
How did you make that? How did you make that connection?
I have no idea.
Now, since we all know that the current FIFA World Cup is going on right now as we speak, right? Pretty much every one of us has gone through enough news stories, enough media coverage of how terribly organized the World Cup has been and basically all the shithousery that's been going on, the not allowing
The
officials
American
to
side.
enter. Yeah, the American side.
The
Yes.
American part. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Mexico is doing really well.
Mexico and Canada have been doing really well. The
Yeah.
USA has had a lot of fuckeries going on, right?
Oh no, who'd
They are
have
what
thunk?
the quality of the matches themselves has been really good, but everything around the event has been so mired in controversy and so many like issues and problems. It has been a nightmare for everyone involved. Like the Iran national team, all of their matches, I don't know for what reason, are being conducted inside the US, right? But the Iran national team is not being hosted in the US. They have to fly out on the day of the
Fuck.
match from Mexico, where they are based. They have to fly out on the day of the match, train like a couple of hours before the match, and then participate in the match, and then
Hmm.
That's
immediately fly out.
horrifying.
Yes, I know. It's been a clusterfuck, basically, everything. And enough people know about all the shithousery that's been going on. So I thought it was pointless to cover all of that. It like pretty much everyone knows all the shit that's been going on. What I did want to talk about was Curacao. That's why I brought it up. So every World Cup produces at least one team that makes people do a double take, right? So there are the usual suspects you have your Brazils, your Germanys, your Argentinas, your France, all the big names, all the great footballing nations, right? Nations with enormous footballing traditions, millions of players, and decades of success behind them. Then there are the countries that football fans have learned to recognize over the years as the like extremely plucky underdogs, right? So you have your teams like Iceland. Iceland was the breakout story of the 2018 World Cup, right? They came out of nowhere and they beat England. They beat a couple of other big teams, which was like really unexpected. Similarly, New Zealand or even Costa Rica. These are all the quote unquote minnows or the underdogs who like rear their head every 4 or 8 years and they come and they create a blast on the scene and they immediately vanish into nothingness. You know, that's usually every World Cup produces one of these sort of underdog stories, usually, right? And these countries occasionally punch above their weight and remind everyone why international football is so compelling, right? And that's one of the many reasons why the Football World Cup as a spectacle is so outrageously good and so enjoyable because You have these time and time again, you have these underdog stories, right? So that is where we also feature the country of Curaçao. So that's
Mm.
what we are going to be talking about today. When the draw for the 2026 FIFA World Cup was announced, one of the most common reactions wasn't excitement or anticipation. It was that of sheer confusion, right? A surprising number of football fans simply didn't know where Curaçao was, or that even Curaçao was a country, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So others recognize the name only because of the bright blue liqueur that often appears in cocktails. There is also a liqueur known as Curaçao, which goes into a lot of cocktails. That's the most common Curaçao that people are aware of. So very few people, if any, associated it with elite international football. So if you had to hazard a guess, do you know where Curaçao is on the map? At least a continent or something, any close by country, anything that you can think of?
Sounds like a European name only, man.
Mm-hmm. Prakhar, if you had to make a guess, there are only seven options. We only have seven continents, right? So just pick one of the seven.
European?
So this confusion is understandable, right? So Curaçao isn't just a small country. It is one of the smallest countries ever to compete at football's highest level. The island has a population of roughly 150,000 people. For Indians, that is 1.5 lakhs. To put that
Mm.
into some perspective, there are actual neighborhoods in Delhi, Mumbai, and Bengaluru that contain more people than the entire nation of Curaçao,
Yeah.
right? If population alone determined sporting success, this story would have ended long before it even began. Yet somehow, a country smaller than many Indian towns managed to qualify for the biggest sporting event on the planet. So today, we will be talking about the island country of Curaçao, where it is on the global map, its history, geography, and its magical journey to the World Cup. That means, unfortunately, we'll also be briefly looking at the football state of affairs of a certain country with about 1.4 billion people as well, right?
I actually saw a reel on Instagram where this lady was asking a question to a Curaçao national that how are you feeling? You lost the match. And she was like, we didn't lose. Didn't you see that
Yeah,
one goal that we made against Germany? And they were like, that's a win for us. First ever international goal that their team made, and that's a win for us.
yeah.
I was like,
Nice.
and that reel got massive views,
Just for
So
context,
you
massive views.
knew
yeah,
Curaçao, Prakhar, but you just
yeah.
you
What?
knew Curaçao. You knew Curaçao was
Mhm.
playing football. You just absolutely forgot and claimed it was deja vu.
No, no, I was talking about the feeling that he was talking about. No, thing that happens. Uh,
No. When Sandy was asking right at the beginning that do you know what Curaçao is? You knew what Curaçao is.
You
yeah,
saw the reel, no?
yeah, yeah.
Oh God. But you didn't say that, no. You said it's
No,
deja vu.
no, no, I was talking about the thing that he was talking before that. You know what happens when things.
No, Prakhar. He was very clearly asking, do you know what's Curaçao? And you were like, is it deja vu? That's what happened.
Oh, no, no, no. I know. I saw the reel. I saw the match.
God.
Anyway, moving on. So Curaçao's achievement becomes even more remarkable when you realize that its success wasn't built on a century of footballing tradition, like a lot of these countries, right? This is not like a Uruguay, a nation that has been obsessed with football since the early 20th century, right? This is not someone like a Croatia, which inherited a strong footballing culture from the erstwhile Yugoslavia, right? In many ways, Curaçao's story is far newer and far stranger, right? In fact, the deeper you dig into the story, the less it feels like a footballing story at all. It becomes a story about empire, migration, identity, and about how a million different decisions made hundreds of years ago can unexpectedly shape events in the present day. And perhaps most intriguingly, it becomes a story about why some countries manage to build successful systems while others spend decades talking about potential. To understand any of that, however, we first need to answer a much simpler question. What exactly is Curaçao? So, geographically speaking, Curaçao shouldn't really feel European at all. And I can get why you both of you said European. The island sits in the southern Caribbean Sea, barely 60
Ah.
kilometers. Yeah. So about 60 kilometers off the coast of Venezuela, right? So just
Mm-hmm.
on top of the South American landmass, right? On a map, it looks far more connected to South America than to Europe. If you were dropped onto the island with no knowledge of its history, you would probably assume you were somewhere in Latin America or the Caribbean. Like there's a very strong,
Mm-hmm.
heavy influence, right? Yet politically, Curaçao exists within a very different framework. So the island is one of the constituent countries of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. This arrangement often confuses people because it doesn't fit neatly into the categories we're used to, right? Curaçao isn't an independent country in the same way that India or Brazil are independent countries. At the same time, it isn't simply a Dutch province either. It occupies a constitutional middle ground, possessing its own government, parliament, and institutions while remaining tied to the Netherlands in certain areas such as defense and foreign affairs. That peculiar status is the result of a long and complicated history. I mean, it's not really all that complicated if you think about it. We know what the history is. Like, you get a sense of what the history might have been, right?
Yeah, Netherlands colonized it and never
Yes.
left.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of the global majority.
Yeah. Long before European ships appeared on the horizon of Curaçao, right? It was inhabited by the Arawak people, particularly the Kaketio branch of the Arawaks. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but bear with me. So the Arawaks had migrated from what is now Venezuela and they settled there, right? This is like centuries and centuries ago. Archaeological evidence suggests that indigenous communities lived on the island for centuries, building settlements and establishing trade links with neighboring regions. Then, the arrival of the Europeans changed everything, much like many other places on the earth. And much like the arrival of the Europeans everywhere that ruined countries across history, here is an ad break to ruin the flow of this episode, but know that it is very important for us. We'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back. We're talking about the history of the island of Curacao. Now back to the episode. In 1499, Spanish explorers reached Curacao during the wave of expeditions that followed Christopher Columbus's voyages. Right, we've learned all of this through history, right? Unlike
Yep.
some other Caribbean islands, however, Curacao initially attracted relatively little to no attention from the Spanish Empire, right? There were no vast reserves of gold waiting to be extracted. There were no large indigenous populations that could be exploited for labor. In the grand scheme of Spanish colonial ambitions, Curacao was useful but very hardly essential, right? It was irrelevant to a lot of people. It was an island which provided nothing in return, right? So
It
these
was free
colon
merch.
yeah, exactly. It was free much. And the colonial empires were not very interested in it because they got little to no returns out of all the effort that they put into sort of colonizing that island, right? The island's fortunes changed dramatically in 1634 when the Dutch seized control of it from the Spanish people. This seemingly minor colonial transaction would prove enormously significant in the grand scheme of things, right? The Dutch West India Company, I don't know why everyone was sort of so enamored by this East India Company, West India Company, like I don't know
No,
why.
but British's East India Company was because they found like they came to India,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but that was the all the West India thing is because fucking Christopher Columbus refused to admit that he did not reach India.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
he just because of that, fucking white people do. Because of that, just continued going. We just continued with this. So
Yeah, yeah.
a lot of trade and colonizing shit was turned West India or something
Yeah,
India
yeah,
at
yeah.
that point of time.
This is also why the group of Caribbean islands are referred to as the West Indies, right? So that's
West Indies,
also where
yeah.
the etymology of the word lies in.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Dutch West India Company quickly recognized the island's strategic value. Positioned near major shipping routes and blessed with a naturally protected harbor, Curaçao became an important commercial center within the Dutch colonial network. Over time, Willemstad, the island's capital, developed into one of the busiest ports in the Caribbean, right? Unfortunately, much of this prosperity was built upon one of the darkest enterprises in human history. For centuries, Curaçao functioned as a major hub in the transatlantic slave trade. Enslaved Africans were transported to the island before being sold and redistributed throughout the Americas. Ships arrived carrying human beings treated as cargo, families were separated, lives were destroyed, and fortunes were built. The island's economic success became deeply intertwined with this system, right? Today, when visitors walk through the colorful streets of Willemstad, they often admire the Dutch colonial architecture, the vibrant waterfront, and the island's picturesque beauty. What is less immediately visible is the history that made much of that prosperity possible. Yet that history remains deeply embedded within the island's identity, right? Not that they had any say in any of that, but it is what it is.
Also, I wouldn't call it prosperity because it seems like
Yeah,
they were doing
yeah,
perfectly
fair.
fine before being colonized.
Yeah. The descendants of enslaved Africans make up a significant portion of the population there, unsurprisingly, right?
Mhm.
African cultural influences remain visible in music, language, cuisine, and everyday life. At the same time, centuries of trade and migration brought influences from Europe, Latin America, the Caribbean, and beyond. The result is one of the most culturally diverse societies in and among the Caribbean islands, right? Language perhaps offers the clearest illustration of this diversity. Dutch remains an official language and continues to play an important role in administration and education. English is very widely spoken, reflecting both tourism and the island's international connections. At the same time, Spanish is very common because of Curaçao's proximity to South America and particularly Venezuela, right? And then there is Papiamento. Papiamento is arguably one of the most fascinating aspects of Curaçaoan identity. It is a Creole language that emerged through centuries of interaction between different communities, drawing influences from Portuguese, Spanish, Dutch, West African languages, and indigenous traditions. It serves as a living reminder of the island's complex history, right? Listening to Papiamento is almost like listening to Curaçao itself. It is one of the indigenous languages there, which is sort of a mix of all the influences, right? The language reflects centuries of migration, trade, colonization, and cultural exchange compressed into everyday conversation, right? This mixture of influences means that Curaçao has always punched above its weight culturally. Despite its very tiny population, the island possesses a remarkably global outlook. For generations, people have moved between Curaçao and other parts of the world, particularly to the Netherlands. Families have maintained connections across continents. Communities have developed identities that are simultaneously local and international. Now, there's a reason why I wanted to explore their history and background a little bit, so that you get an idea how their footballing project sort of also caught momentum and how they ended up reaching the World Cup, because it's a very important cornerstone of how they went about their establishing systems, footballing systems,
Yeah.
right? Now, I admit that at first glance, none of this seems particularly relevant to football. But in reality, it would eventually become the single most important factor behind Curaçao's rise. The modern story of Curaçao takes another unexpected turn in 2010. So we're talking about 16 years ago, right? For much of the 20th century, Curaçao was part of a larger political entity known as the Netherlands Antilles. I'm guessing that's how you pronounce it. It's Antilles, much like
We
Ambani's
don't care
house,
about
you know.
also we don't care about pronouncing European names correctly. That's fine.
So, alongside islands such as Bonaire, Saint Martin, Saba, and Saint Eustatius, it existed within a shared administrative framework overseen by the Netherlands. For decades, this arrangement functioned reasonably well. Then, after years of constitutional discussions and political negotiations, the Netherlands Antilles was formally dissolved on 10th October 2010. The various islands took different paths. Yes, that is why
That
2010 is
recent?
important. Yes. So basically, Curaçao became an independent country for all intents and purposes as recent as 2010, right? 16 years
Can
ago.
I just say that the audacity of Netherlands to claim to be the moral center of the world with its Hague and everything, and as late as 2010
Yeah.
being a full-blown colonizer,
Yeah.
none of them can be trusted. Not one of the global north countries can be trusted.
Yeah. No, fair.
Nonsense.
So some of these islands that I named before, they became special municipalities of the Netherlands itself. That was by their choice, as I understand, right? Others acquired greater autonomy. Curaçao emerged as a constituent country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, gaining significantly more control over its internal affairs while maintaining its constitutional relationship with the Dutch state. This date is worth dwelling on for a moment, right? Modern Curaçao, in its current political form, has only existed since 2010. Again, just for a little bit of context, Instagram launched in 2010. The iPad, the very first iPad was launched in 2010. Uber, the ride sharing app, launched in 2010, right? So modern
I
Curaçao is
was
rough.
just about an adult in 2010. Just had become an adult.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So modern Curaçao is roughly the same age as many of the apps sitting on our phones right now, right? And yet, within just 16 years of acquiring its current constitutional status, the country would achieve something that far older nations have spent generations chasing. It would qualify for a FIFA World Cup. Right? That fact alone should sort of make us pause and
Yeah.
like take a breath and just understand the implications of that statement. You know how difficult it is to get to qualify for
Yeah.
a FIFA World Cup. India has been trying to do that since time immemorial, right? We still, for a population of 1.4 billion people with so much funds at our disposal, we are unable to do even 1/10 of what this island country with a population less than East fucking Delhi, less than EDMC's purview that we have discussed in the past, has sort of managed to qualify for the World Cup, dude.
Yeah, because they must actually be investing into the players and into the training instead of fucking us doing, I don't know what the fuck in our sporting community and launching fucking IPL instead of doing something good
No,
with an
IPL,
insane
IPL is
amount.
its own thing. You don't have to sort of cut down funds from one sport to put it into the other. Like both things
Okay,
can be
no,
true, right? So you
yes,
can,
but you do direct funds, and IPL is a waste of funds. There was no need.
fair.
It's the Super League system. It's a
Yeah,
fully undeserved amount of money going into rich people's pockets, making already rich people extremely rich, instead of taking the immense talent that exists in multiple sports. You see how football is played in the northeastern states, in
yeah,
like in Calcutta, in Bengal. It's a big thing. We have when we used to go as children, we were a part of the football culture over there.
hmm,
I was never interested in it, but it was very much a part of the culture, and local teams compete very, very seriously over
yeah,
there.
yeah. No, I know.
It's a whole thing. If people actually if our fucking governance actually invested in these people, we would have reached the World Cup.
Yeah, no, fair. All of that is true. Why I also mentioned the 16-year time frame is because countries do not normally arrive at football's biggest stage so quickly, right?
Mhm.
16 years might sound like a long time, but it's not. Like in terms of
Yeah.
institutional development, 16 years is basically a blink in the grand scheme of things, you know.
I have a question. Was there a football team before that? Like, was there like set up for sports or for football before
Yeah, you
2010?
have
There
to you have
must
to
be.
yeah, you have to remember that it was a Dutch colony, and Netherlands has always
Yeah.
been a very big footballing nation, right? So whatever Netherlands, so similarly, how do you think cricket ended up in India, right?
Cricket. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's the biggest example I can give you.
Okay.
Because the British officers used to play cricket so much that Indians also got inculcated into the sport, right? Similarly, because Curaçao was a Dutch colony, and because the
Yeah.
Dutch people were so big on football, so it's almost impossible to even think of a time where that influence might not have passed on to the Curaçaoan people, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So national football teams are usually the product of decades of institutional development, huge structures, domestic competitions, and accumulated experience, right? Success at the international level tends to reward patience over anything else. Curaçao, however, appeared to be operating according to a different set of rules altogether. The question then is very obvious, right? Like, how does a country with just 150,000 people, a modern political identity barely older than social media, and no significant footballing history suddenly emerge as a World Cup nation? The answer lies in something that Curaçao possessed long before it possessed a World Cup team. It's people, right? More specifically, people who had emigrated from the island but built their lives elsewhere and maintained a connection to a place many of them barely knew. And that is where the football story truly begins.
Yeah. I think I've heard of this. Yeah.
This is an approach that a lot of
Yeah.
countries have started adopting now. Ashmita,
Yeah.
this will start making sense to you in a bit. Okay, I'll just get
Okay.
there. The football story of Curaçao begins long before there was a Curaçao national team.
Hmm.
For most of the 20th century, football on the island existed under a completely different banner, right? Curaçao was part of the Netherlands Antilles, a collection of Dutch Caribbean islands that competed together internationally. So it was basically, imagine the West Indies cricket team, right?
Yeah.
They are not from the same island, all the players. They
Yeah.
are from a bunch,
Yeah.
one is from Barbados, one is from Antigua, one is from Jamaica. All of them together form the West Indies national team, right? So imagine that to be the case, which was the Netherlands Antilles international team. So you had players picked from all of these different islands under one common banner, right? The Netherlands Antilles national team was never a major force in world football, right? But neither was it very insignificant. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, the team occasionally produced impressive performances in sort of regional competitions, right? And even challenged some of the stronger sides in the Caribbean. So when I talk about regional competitions, I'm talking about the equivalent of, you have the Asia Cup, right, in football. All the Asian teams participate. You have your Euros for European Cups. Similarly, you have your regional competitions there in the Caribbean, right? Yet football in the region always faced a very fundamental problem. Geography made regular competition very difficult, right? Resources were very limited. Infrastructure lagged behind larger footballing nations extensively. Most importantly, talented young players often left. If you were a gifted footballer from Curaçao, the most logical route to a professional career was rarely to stay on the island, right? It was almost always to move elsewhere for better opportunities, right? For decades, this seemed like a distinct disadvantage. Then someone in their National Footballing Association realized that it could become a very distinct advantage as well. The relationship between Curaçao and the Netherlands had created migration patterns that stretched back generations, right? Thousands of Curaçaoans had moved to Dutch cities in search of education, employment, and opportunities. Entire communities emerged in Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Utrecht, and The Hague. Their children and grandchildren grew up with a complicated identity. They were Dutch in many respects. They attended Dutch schools. They played in Dutch youth academies. They spoke Dutch fluently. Yet many still maintain family connections to Curaçao through parents, grandparents, and relatives. Right? This might not sound particularly remarkable until you remember where these children were learning football. So, just very short tangent. If you guys remember that particular episode of Ted Lasso, we hear the Dutch school of football, Johan Cruyff, total football, all of that. So, Netherlands has long been considered like one of the greatest sort of innovators, strategic innovators in the world of football, right? So, even to this day, the Dutch school of football is considered one of the top ones, right? A lot of young players are cultivated there, like year after year after year. A lot of the Dutch league teams, club teams, they lose all of their young rising potential talents every single year. All the bigger teams come and poach them, and yet a new set of people, new set of young kids immediately. It's like they have a conveyor belt of like footballing talent, right? As soon as one set goes away, a new set emerges immediately the next year, and then they play there for a year or two, and again they're poached away by bigger team. Immediately a new set of younger kids will emerge, like equally talented or gifted, right? And that is because of the decades and decades and decades of footballing experience. And there is a certain I don't know what they do, but the Dutch school of football is very, very, very highly regarded, right? Because their coaching methods and centers are considered extremely elite, right? So that is why it's very relevant to this story as well. The Netherlands is one of the most influential footballing countries in history, right? Despite having a population of only around 18 million people, Dutch football has shaped the sport in ways that few countries ever have. Johan Cruyff revolutionized modern tactics. Ajax's academy became one of the most admired talent factories in the world. The Dutch system emphasized technical skill, intelligence, positional awareness, and creativity. Players developed in the Netherlands were not merely taught how to kick a ball, they were taught how to understand the game, right? As a result, young footballers with Curaçaoan heritage were receiving elite football education without the island having to build those systems themselves. Does that make sense now? So
Yes.
basically, they could
Mm.
bypass the infrastructure and the system building component. Usually the first 10 to 20 years, countries take to just setting up the infrastructure, building the grassroots level systems, then building up, right? So what they thought was we can just bypass this step altogether by just sort of reaching out to the diaspora, the Curaçaoan diaspora, which is already existing and educated in the Netherlands, the Dutch school of football, right? So it was sort of almost ingenious if you come to think about it. As a
Yes, I mean,
result,
the colonized should get
yes,
some advantage of being colonized.
exactly,
Like,
exactly, yes. For a long time, however, this talent remained largely disconnected from Curaçao, right? Many players simply pursued careers in the Netherlands. Some represented Dutch youth teams. Others drifted through professional football without ever considering international football with their ancestral homeland. The turning point came when the Football Federation began looking beyond the island's borders. Rather than viewing migration as a drain on local talent, officials started viewing the diaspora as an extension of the nation itself. This was a subtle but extremely important shift in thinking, right? Instead of asking how a population of 150,000 people could produce enough elite footballers, they began asking a very different question altogether. How many footballers around the world could legitimately call themselves Curaçaoan? The answer was far larger than anyone had previously imagined. Under FIFA's eligibility rules, players can represent countries through ancestry and family connections. A player born in Rotterdam to Curaçaoan parents could choose Curaçao. A player whose grandparents emigrated from the island could potentially choose Curaçao. Suddenly, the talent pool expanded far beyond the island's physical borders. Because, as you might have imagined, because so many people emigrated from the islands, you could be born anywhere. You just needed one family member to be from Curaçao, and you could immediately qualify to be a Curaçaoan, right?
it's like European ancestry rules. You
Yes,
can have like one fucking grandfather's grandmother as a Spanish, you know,
yes,
I don't know,
Exactly.
even a person brought into Spain, and suddenly you now can own property in Spain. You can become a dual citizen and everything.
Precisely
Yeah.
that. The Federation began actively recruiting these players. Scouts and administrators reached out to professionals across Europe. Conversations that might previously never have happened began taking place. Players who had spent their entire lives in the Netherlands were asked to consider representing a place many had only visited during holidays or family gatherings. The strategy was not unique by any means, right? A lot of countries have tried doing this. This is not the first or
Yeah,
even the last one. Yeah, yeah. Like India has tried doing this for many, many, many years very unsuccessfully. I don't know why.
really.
Yes. Countries such as Morocco, Algeria, and Senegal had been successfully leveraging diaspora communities for years. Right? Just for context, a vast majority of the Moroccan national team, they are born outside of Morocco. They are either born in Spain or in France or in Netherlands, right? Similarly, a vast majority of the Senegal team, they are born in and around France. Almost all of them were born in France, right? Very few people are Senegal born and brought up, right? So this is the you can start noticing a pattern in the sort of they were the colonizers. They took out their a lot of their ancestors emigrated from their ancestral homelands, and then these national footballing association now started reaching out to their broader diaspora to sort of saying that you will never get a chance there to play in for the France national team. Why not just come and represent your homeland, right? And which, to be very honest, is extremely sort of desirable and very favorable to a lot of these people because they know that their objectively footballing careers are extremely short-lived in terms of time spans. Like if you're extremely good, you will get about 20 years. So if you're just a good player, you will get probably 8 years, 10 years at tops, if at all, right? So to
If you're
maximize
Messi, you're
this,
going to play till you die.
yeah, because Messi doesn't need to do a lot of things. He just needs to do one thing, and he does that one thing to a level that nobody has ever seen. So if you're so good at one thing, why not keep doing it? No, like,
Yeah, he's amazing.
right? So anyway, what made Curaçao different was the scale of its dependence on the idea. Larger countries could treat diaspora recruitment as an additional advantage, like something to sort of substantiate their existing pool of players. For Curaçao, it became a cornerstone of the national footballing strategy. They almost entirely depended on this strategy at all, right? Totally. The results became extremely visible surprisingly quickly, right? As more dual national players joined the program, the quality of the squad improved dramatically. You can see why. Footballers with experience in European leagues began appearing in the national team setup. Players who had been developed in professional academies suddenly found themselves representing a country most football fans and even people on this planet barely knew even existed. One of the most symbolic figures in the transformation was Patrick Kluivert. So, footballing fans will have heard that name, Patrick Kluivert, but for those who don't know, again, Patrick Kluivert is a former Netherlands international football player. He used to play for Barcelona. He played the elite level, the top level of football. He went on to become a coach and all of that. He was also a product of the famous Ajax footballing academy. So he traveled from Ajax, then he transferred to Barcelona, and then he represented the Netherlands national team. So he's a huge name in football, right? Kluivert was one of the most gifted strikers of his generation. He won the Champions League with Ajax, starred for Barcelona, and scored 40 goals for the Netherlands national team. What many people don't realize is that his mother was from Curaçao, right? So for
Ah,
Kluivert, the island was more than an ancestral footnote. It was part of his identity. So when he became involved with the national team project, his presence alone brought credibility and visibility. Suddenly, footballers who might previously have ignored a call up from Curaçao were paying attention. So Kluivert's involvement also highlighted something broader. Curaçao's football project wasn't simply about finding players, it was about building legitimacy. If the island wanted talented footballers raised in Europe to commit to the national team, it needed to demonstrate ambition, right? And that's what the federation started doing. Over time, an increasingly impressive list of football personalities became involved with the national team there. So there is another, he's also a former Netherlands national coach. His name is Guus Hiddink. He also managed Chelsea for a bit, a lot of Premier League teams. He also managed the Netherlands national team. So he took charge of the Curaçao national team in 2020. So Hiddink was one of the most respected coaches in world football, having led the Netherlands to a World Cup semi-final and transformed South Korea into one of the great surprise stories of the 2002 World Cup. His appointment generated headlines around the footballing world, right? So why would a coach of that stature choose Curaçao, right? So that answer almost revealed how seriously the footballing association there was taking this. They were not only leaning on the diaspora, but they were also leaning on the Dutch connection to sort of rope in these all of these huge names, so this random nobody from the footballing association of Curaçao is calling up this diaspora player, and this world renowned coach is calling up this diaspora player. So there's a difference, right? You
Yeah.
can't turn down a call from someone like a Kluivert or a Hiddink. You might turn down a call from this XYZ person who's from the Curaçaoan FA, right? So it was a two-pronged, extremely effective strategy, which sort of compelled these diaspora players to sort of even consider this in the first place, right? And when Hiddink took over the team, he saw potential. More importantly, he recognized that the foundations were already being built. Curaçao possessed access to a diaspora talent pool, improving organizational structures and a growing footballing identity. It was no longer merely an island participating in football. It was turning into a footballing nation altogether. When Hiddink stepped aside due to some health concerns, another famous Dutch name stepped in. Dick Advocaat eventually took charge. Advocaat had managed the Netherlands, South Korea, Russia, Serbia, and numerous clubs across Europe. Few countries of Curaçao's size could dream of attracting coaches with such credentials. The presence of these figures created an almost virtuous cycle, right? Better coaches attracted better players improved the performances, and improved performances created greater visibility. And greater visibility attracted further investment and interest. You can see how all of this sort of ties into their rise in the footballing world, right? And then finally, their breakthrough moment arrived in 2019. And before we talk about the breakthrough moment, I think it is time for a break for us first, and we'll see you on the other side. All right, welcome back from the break. So we were talking about Curaçao's breakthrough moment, right? In terms of their footballing history. So for years, Curaçao had been improving quietly, right? Regional football observers had begun noticing the change. Outside the Caribbean, however, very few people were paying attention. The CONCACAF Gold Cup changed that. So, for those who don't know, CONCACAF is the Confederation of North, Central America, and Caribbean Association of Football. That's the acronym for CONCACAF. So, the Gold Cup is the CONCACAF's tournament, right? So, a lot of North American, Caribbean teams participate in that, and it's like the Euros for that region, if that makes sense, right? The tournament functions as the continental championship for North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. Teams such as Mexico, the United States, and Costa Rica typically dominate the conversation when it comes to the Gold Cup, right? Curaçao entered the competition with little fanfare and even lower expectations. What followed, though, was one of the surprises of the tournament. They defeated Honduras, one of the region's established footballing nations. They held Jamaica to a draw. More importantly, they did not look like underdogs scraping for survival. They looked organized, technically competent, and tactically disciplined. Their performances suggested a team that belonged at that level. When they reached the quarterfinals, many casual observers treated it as a Cinderella story. But pretty much that's your instinct, right? Like out of the blue, there's this team that comes up. You'll be like, okay, fine. It was luck, beginner's luck, almost like, right? They somehow scraped their way through the competition and reached till the quarterfinals. And oftentimes people scoff at the notion of reaching just the quarterfinals, but you have to put things into context as well, right?
Scoff at the notion of reaching quarterfinals? Are you shitting me? It's an extremely difficult sport that requires immense discipline and training and so much fucking skill.
No, no. So, for example, if I were talking to, say, an England fan or a Brazil fan or, an Argentina fan, quarterfinals, they wouldn't even bat an eyelid. They're like, this is the least we expect from our country, right? So, for someone like a
Ah, yes.
Curaçao to end up in the quarterfinals of any competition, be that regional, continental, whatever, that holds a lot of value. Like, for the first time in their history, they reached a knockout phase of a competition from someone who had no standing at all, right? So if you put these things into context, it carries a lot of weight behind that, right? It's a really, really significant achievement in their sort of story. However, inside footballing circles, the reaction was very different. This wasn't treated as a miracle, right? This was sort of like a warning signal. The rest of CONCACAF was beginning to realize that Curaçao had become a serious footballing nation. So their goalkeeper, Eloy Room, he's still the goalkeeper, by the way. He's still the goalkeeper for the Curaçaoan national team at this World Cup also. So their goalkeeper, Eloy Room, emerged as one of the stars of the tournament. Players such as Leandro Bacuna and Coco Martina brought experience from European leagues. So if I'm not mistaken, both of these players have also played at the Premier League level. So very, very, very
Oh,
high level, right? So at the
elite
elite
players
top
then.
level of footballing pyramid. The team pushed the United States all the way to a narrow 1-0 defeat in the quarterfinals. Although the tournament ended there, something important had changed, right? People sort started to take notice of them because they pushed, and also US is among the CONCACAF circles. Your US and your Mexicos are like the bullies there, like they are the big dogs. They almost always bully these all the smaller teams at that level. When they almost ran the US ragged till the to just a 1-0 defeat, which is it's a very big achievement,
Hmm.
right? It's a very big achievement. For the first time, people outside the Caribbean were asking not who Curaçao was, but how far Curaçao could go. That momentum carried into the years that followed. The federation continued recruiting diaspora talent, the coaching infrastructure improved, the player pool deepened significantly. Most importantly, the idea of representing Curaçao became increasingly attractive to a lot of these players, right? What had once felt like an obscure footballing outpost now felt like a project with genuine ambition. By the time the World Cup qualifications began, the groundwork had already been laid. From the outside, the qualification appeared almost very sudden to a lot of people. Headlines focused on the country's tiny population and unlikely rise. The reality was far less dramatic and more systematic, right? In line with what we have discussed so far. Qualification was not the result of a lucky generation. Once every 50 years, a group of players come together and a lot of things go right your way and something end up achieving something. That is absolutely not the case in this story. It was not the byproduct of a single miracle run. It was the culmination of over a decade of planning, recruitment, and institution building. Curaçao had identified its limitations early and built a strategy specifically designed to overcome them. When qualification was finally secured, the achievement was celebrated as one of the great underdog stories in modern football. Yet, perhaps the most remarkable thing about it was how inevitable it felt to those who had been paying real close attention. The World Cup ticket had been earned long before the final qualification match was played. That shift in thinking transformed Curaçao from a footballing curiosity into a World Cup nation. By this point in story, it becomes almost impossible to avoid thinking about India in this context, right? Because we are all from India. And as a long-standing football fan, I feel extremely disheartened to look at the state of affairs of football in India because, from a very crude point of view, right? If I just looking at the sheer numbers, it seems the odds are astronomically against us. It almost feels like to put together a squad of 20 odd players who can just play good football. Right? I don't know why we haven't still managed to do that when there are success stories after success stories outside of India, wherever you look. Any continent, you pick any random continent, and you can at least find 1 to 2 examples across those continents. And they haven't sort of reinvented the wheel or even done anything extraordinary. They've just done things, very basic things, just efficiently. That's all. And there is no reason to think why we could not do that, yet we somehow fail to do that every single fucking time. I don't know why. In fact, one of the reasons Curaçao's qualification captured so much attention around the world is because it challenges one of the assumptions we instinctively make about the sport. We tend to believe that bigger countries should be better at producing athletes, right? Sheer numbers,
Yeah.
right? By the law of averages, the more number of people you have, the odds are at least 1 in 100 of them will turn out to be a good athlete, right? Even if
Yeah.
there was a decent
100, like one in a million is going to be more than enough for us.
exactly, even 1 in 1 million in terms of Indian population, even if we had
Yeah.
one top athlete for every million people, we'd still have a fucking good ass football team. Yet that's not the
I'm
case,
sure we do.
right?
I'm sure we do have. We just don't train them to be elite level because we refuse to invest in them.
Yeah, I mean it's it. Of course, by all of this, I am not pointing the finger at the current Indian national team. They are not at fault for whatever is taking place,
Yeah.
right? They are doing the best they can given the circumstances, right? They are struggling to fight for their livelihood right now as we speak.
Yeah. Which is ridiculous. Like, as sports people, livelihood cannot be a concern because there's a lot of money that goes into training the way sports people need to train at even national level,
Mhm.
like even smaller, no, forget about national or international level, even smaller levels, right? You need a lot of investment.
Yeah,
So you can't be like, I have to do a fucking full-time job or something like that,
yeah,
or while, like, this is not fucking marketing. It's not an easy fucking job.
Can I give you
yeah,
an example? The first I'll tell you the situation. The players in India right now are struggling to and requesting and to put it in better words, begging the government to release funds or have funds for the league which happens in India. Not just ISL, but like different leagues where are
Yeah.
like proper Indian leagues where these players they play. On the other hand, there is this guy. I don't know if Sandy, if you've heard of this guy. His name is Ranjit. So this guy,
Ranjit
he
what? Ranjit like Prince?
Ranjit
Okay.
Bajaj.
Ranjit Bajaj.
He
Yeah,
has
Um,
a full. Okay.
so this guy was weirdly on roadies, and post his fame on roadies, he completely vanished. And even on the show, he showed his interest towards football. And cut to 10 years and 15 years to now, this guy owns a club called Minerva FC, which is in Punjab. And this guy has invested his own money into this club, trains the players with his own money, and his players have competed in European leagues like the under 18, under 16, under 20 leagues, and they won. So his point was that if you invest money and proper infrastructure, you can get players out of this country.
Of course, look
And
at cricket. Look at what we have done in fucking cricket, dude. It's
yeah,
legitimately miraculous what we have done in cricket. I mean, and it's not, what we have done is not recent. When I was
yeah, yeah,
growing up, we used to watch our primary sport that we used to watch was cricket. At that time also,
yeah,
we had some of the best players in the world. There was no doubt about it. And it's not that we had, especially at that point of time, BCCI became, of course, very, very powerful as we were growing up. But initially also, when all the Gavaskars and everybody was coming up, right? At that time, it wasn't that we had an immense amount of money being put into cricket, but it was enough to get these extremely talented players skilled enough to not only compete in the global stage but fucking win. And they did exceptionally well. They are renowned till today. They're revered in the cricketing community till today. So it's a very logical conclusion. But then, we refuse to invest in the most basic of the things. As long as Adani fucking gets a forest for 1 rupee and then it manages to fucking cut it down, we are all right with it. We refuse to invest in fucking education or water or air or sports or anything that makes people's lives better. We won't do that.
Yeah, no, all of those points. Yes. Now, talking about the point of population, on the surface, that logic appears perfectly reasonable, right? The bigger the pool you have, the better choice you have, right? Theoretically, on paper, it sounds reasonable, right? After
Yep.
all, if you were asked to build a future footballing superpower from scratch, population would probably be one of the first things on your wish list, right? India has a population of over 1.4 billion people. Curaçao has a population of roughly 150,000 people. The difference is so large that it almost becomes meaningless to talk about comparisons, right? India
Yeah, that's
doesn't,
what 0.1%
yeah,
of our
India,
population.
so I'm getting to that. India doesn't have 10 times the population or even 100 times the population. India has nearly 10,000 times the population of Curaçao. It's like talking
Crazy.
about the moon and the sun, right? In terms of
Yeah.
size, that's how big the difference is, right? And yet, only one of these countries qualified for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And we all know who that is, right? That statistic alone should force us to rethink how we talk about football development. For years, discussions about Indian football have revolved around potential. Every few years, someone points out that India has more than 1 billion people and asks why the country isn't a footballing powerhouse yet. The implication is usually that success is simply waiting to happen. It's just around the corner. Just the timing is wrong, or something went wrong, or this went wrong, or the stars didn't align, and all of that bullshit, right? As though population itself is a resource that can eventually be converted into sporting achievement. The problem is that population is not a system, right? Population
Yeah.
creates possibilities. Systems convert those possibilities into outcomes,
Yeah.
right? If population
Yeah,
alone
I
did,
mean, you are still going to have like 11 players playing, right? You're not going
yeah,
to have fucking 10,000 players playing instead of them.
exactly,
So what?
exactly.
So nonsense argument. Our excuse for everything is population.
Hmm.
Even when you point out problems in our systems, some idiot or the other will be like, oh, it is difficult to manage this population of the country. Fuck off, dude. It's we somehow find our population to be an advantage and a disadvantage
At the
depending
same
on the
time,
context.
it's
Yeah.
showing us
Yeah.
population. Yes.
Yes.
So if population alone determined footballing success, China would be dominating the fucking sport, right?
Yeah.
Indonesia would be a regular World Cup participant.
And no
Pakistan would
European
be,
country would be doing
yes,
anything.
exactly. Pakistan would be producing elite footballers day in, day out, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that footballing history is filled with examples of relatively small countries outperforming much larger ones. So even Netherlands that we talked about, the entire country of Netherlands has just 18 million people, dude. 18 million is less than the population of Delhi. Okay, just for
Yeah.
context. So
Yeah.
population counts for fuck all. Population means nothing. If you're not utilizing that population, there is no point in having that population. No, what's the point?
Yeah. You even compare the top, like the World Cup, whatever, finalists or what participants or whatever they're called, teams. US is one of the largest countries, no?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not one of the best teams. And this also annoys me about not having our team over there, because I would really like to shit on US teams. And I would really, really, really like to do it, but I can't do it because where's my fucking team? Like, I can't. I love it. I love it. And when in my school group, the South Americans are shitting on Europe and shitting on US and on Portugal as well. Till the time fucking Ronaldo plays for fucking Portugal. Till that time, I love Portugal, but as a country, but till the time Ronaldo is playing for them, I am against them. So I love it when they do it, and I really want to participate, and I want to shit on them so bad, but I can't. That is also that's my personal grudge.
Yes, that's your issue,
And if you
Asmita.
know me, if
That's
you
not an
know
issue
me, my
shared by
personal
people.
grudges are what I'm made of. So
Yes, but luckily for whoever she's holding a grudge against, she has a very short memory, so it'll probably, go away by the time this episode is released even. Anyway, also Croatia reached the World Cup final in 2018 and the semi-finals in 2022 with a population of under 4 million people, right? Uruguay has won multiple World Cups despite having fewer people than Delhi. Iceland qualified for the 2018 World Cup with a population smaller than many Indian neighborhoods. If I'm not mistaken, their population is in the region of 300,000, somewhere around that, right? Now, Curaçao has also joined that list. What
Yeah.
these countries have in common is not population, it is organization. One of the most important ideas in sports development is that talent is not especially rare. Truly exceptional talent may be rare, but basic athletic potential exists almost everywhere, right? Every country produces gifted children. Every country produces young people with natural abilities. The challenge is not finding the talent. The challenge is creating systems that allows that talent to thrive and survive, right? That is where we fail time and time and time again. So this is where I again come back to the fact that it's not that India is not producing capable footballers. India is producing more than capable footballers. India is not allowing them to thrive in this system that we have built for
yeah,
ourselves.
like
Hmm?
everything else in India, it is a systemic challenge. It is not individual challenges. We just
Yes.
try to push off everything to individuals uh, because we refuse to challenge the overlords. But it's everything in India is across the globe. Everything is a systemic
Yeah.
challenge. It's not
In
people's
India,
problem.
and for football, the basic requirement is a ground, right? That's the
Hmm.
basic. Players here and teams here, they struggle to get a ground to train because most of the stadiums are not owned by the clubs. They are owned
Hmm.
by the government or private companies, and they don't get the ground until unless you pay for it, right?
Yeah,
Or the
I mean,
government, they don't.
private companies is shit. If it is owned by the government, it should be accessible to young people training all the time. That's your fucking job. What are you
But
doing with the fucking stadium instead of apart from just renaming the goddamn thing?
that is true. They should. Like the national team, they do get stadiums for to train, but national team trains for a very less time as compared to the players when they play for the clubs. And for clubs, it's a private league. So if you want to have a stadium for yourself to train, you need to book a club.
Hmm.
The club needs money. The clubs, they don't have money because they don't have sponsorship. They don't have sponsorship because the football in India is not,
Yeah.
making money if you see the business side of it. Even if you get like, even if you're playing for the national team and even if you get the stadiums, you don't have proper kits, you don't have proper
Yeah.
setup or trainers or proper schedule because either the
Nutrition.
players, nutrition,
You don't
yes.
have proper nutrition. That is wild.
Yeah.
Half of the time they're struggling, they're worried most of the time because what happens if there's no match, or if none of the clubs they take them, they won't have money to survive. They think
Yeah.
about their families and their the struggle is, too much for them to
Yeah,
focus on like qualifying. They want to qualify, yes, but they have much bigger
Of
issues
course.
yeah,
on
yeah,
their
yeah,
mind.
Yeah, I mean, everybody who
absolutely.
goes into sports wants to play at the best levels
Yeah,
possible. They want to do well, and we just create systems that don't allow them to do so.
precisely all of that. And footballing federations often become obsessed with copying successful nations, right? Like, this is not just footballing association. This is pretty much true for a lot of organizations as well. We see one thing has
Everything.
worked and we try to emulate that same ditto,
Yeah, yeah,
copy
yeah.
paste it, right? So they borrow academy structures, coaching models, and development programs without fully considering whether those systems fit local realities. Curaçao took a different approach altogether, right? It looked at its unique circumstances and asked how those circumstances could become their advantages, right? Their answer turned out to be the diaspora, right? That might not be applicable for a lot of other nations. But again, just talking about diaspora, right? India also possesses one of the largest diasporas in the world. There is no
Yeah,
country on this fucking planet where you go and won't bump into a fucking Indian there,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
There are Indians all over the world. And
yeah, yeah.
especially there are a lot of Indians in Europe, right? Where a lot of these footballing academies are set up. Millions of people of Indian origin live across North America, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and Oceania. None of this, I don't have the exact numbers, but you don't necessarily need me to bring up the numbers because it's a well known fact by now, right? In theory, that should represent an enormous resource, right? In practice, however, the comparison quickly becomes complicated. Unlike Curaçao, India's challenge has never been a shortage of people. The country already possesses a massive domestic population. Recruiting diaspora players would not solve the deeper structural issues that have historically affected football development here. It might
Yeah.
strengthen the national team in certain areas. You might get a player or two who might be so good that you can't not afford to play them, right? But it would not address questions around grassroots development, coaching quality, youth pathways, or institutional stability. This is why the lesson of Curaçao is often misunderstood. The lesson is not that India should simply recruit more diaspora players. The lesson is that successful organizations understand themselves better than most other people do, right? Curaçao understood exactly what it was. It understood its limitations, it understood its opportunities. Most importantly, it built a strategy around those realities. There is another reason why the Curaçao story resonates beyond football. It challenges our assumptions about size. Even though Curaçao's World Cup story began with what many deem to be sort of a disastrous opening, debut at the world stage. Like they got walloped 7-1 by Germany, like just last week, right? But what Prakhar was mentioning in between, the one goal that they scored, it meant so much to the entire country. Like they scored one goal against Germany, right? So that was such a big deal for them. The people went crazy, dude. They were celebrating way late into the night just because they had scored one
I
goal in the
love
World Cup
that.
against Germany,
Yeah.
right? And they were
I
like,
love
it
that.
doesn't matter that they scored seven against us. We scored one against them. That is the
Yeah.
story for us, you know?
And Germany
Yes.
has won World Cup, I think, three, four
Yeah, yeah.
times, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Germany is a
Imagine.
very, very, very big name
Very
in
good
football,
team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? So that was, and as of today morning, we are recording this on the 21st of June. Today morning was Curaçao's second match against Ecuador. They drew the match nil-nil. Ecuador is a very good
Oh,
footballing team as well.
wow.
So they had their first point in World Cup history, right? And they were
Love
celebrating
this.
like crazy. So it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
love it. And also, we can plan our next trip to Curaçao.
Sure. To the Caribbean with what money, Ashmita? Yeah.
Which is
All
why,
the 20
listeners,
cents that we're
could you
earning from the
please,
ads.
listeners, please share it. Please share this episode and other episodes with your friends, colleagues, your family, because that is how we reach new people. That is how I'm hoping to get some money that we split amongst the three of us, so that in,
Even
I
then,
don't
we
know, a
won't be
couple
able
of
to buy,
decades,
I don't know what.
in
It's
amongst
peanuts.
in a couple of decades, we are able to go to this trip.
Sure.
Fair enough.
All right. This brings me to my recommendation of the week.
Recommendation time.
Now, talking of sport, by we, I mean the three of us and a friend of ours, we've recently started playing pickleball semi-regularly. By that, I mean probably once a week or so. So far, it's been really, really fun, and it definitely counts as physical activity. Nobody can take that away from me. And as someone in their mid 30s, I would highly recommend that as a relatively cheaper source of entertainment and exercise. And that is my recommendation of the week, the entire sport of pickleball.
Oh,
Right. So, if you guys would like to chip in and also recommend what you like about pickleball, we can just uh, add that to this.
I like the fact that um, it's a white people sport. By that I mean you don't need to have a lot of fitness involved in it. Like if you play fucking tennis or paddle or something, you need to be a fit person. But for pickleball, uh, of course, there's a variety of skills involved, right? Like I am, without a doubt, I'm the least skilled person in this entire group. But I can play and I can have a lot of fun with it. And it's only white
Mhm.
people's sport that you can do this with. I can't go and play fucking football because I will get
Football is
battered.
also a white people sport, Ashmita.
Yeah,
I
football,
hate to let you know that.
but was a poor people sort of sport. It was South America, right? Where it really became the street favorite. No, am I mistaken?
Sure, but it originated
Football.
in England, right? So it's an
Hmm.
English sport for all
Ever.
intents and purposes.
That's
So is
okay. Even
cricket,
cricket
you
did.
know.
Yeah,
So
that's okay. So they just had the money and the resources to do so because they stole from everybody else. But football is legitimately a poor person's sport. I mean, if not at the elite levels, but you know,
yeah.
not everybody can play well. You need skills to play well. And if you see the four of us playing, you can tell that, right? But anybody can play. That's the best part about a white person
Yeah.
sport. Anybody can play.
And if you have any more of such inspiring stories such as Curaçao's, or if you just like to share your pickleball court of choice that you like and would like us to go try out, please do write to us at don'tknowdocare1@gmail.com. The one is numerical. Or you can reach out to us over on Instagram or through our YouTube comments. Both of those places were available at DKTC Podcast. Please like, share, subscribe. Please give us some ratings on your podcast platform of choice. Please share it with your friends and family. That's how we're getting most of our new listeners. Thank you to all the people who have done so far. And that brings us to the end of the episode. And up until next time, take care.